This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to your show, Coffee with Experts. This is your host, Ranmay here. And today we have George, who is the AI and Innovation Director at EXPRE with us. Hey, George, how is it going?
Very well. Thank you for inviting me.
Lovely. George, before we move any forward, why don't you talk us through your journey a bit, how it all started, and now, kind of you getting into AI and digital marketing, SEO, web development. How did it all come through? What has been your experience? And we'll take it from there.
Right. So I founded EXPRE to essentially work on websites and work on promoting websites. And what we've been seeing in the last, let's say, 6 months or so is a tremendous acceleration of AI in any aspect of the digital journey. So the turning point for us from actually moving from a traditional agency setup and, building and developing websites and promoting them through a certain set of processes came from usage. So a while back, I saw Gary Vaynerchuk talking about social media and advertising and stuff like that. But he said something really profound as in following the latest trends and is not enough. What you need to do is become a practitioner. And I think that resonated throughout this whole AI journey. I strongly believe that it's about awareness of what's possible. And by actually staying the course and pretty much since the inception of ChatGPT, we invested heavily into learning what it can do and staying updated with the capabilities of various large language models. And at some point, wherever we stumbled across something that worked at least, let's say 80% of what we were trying to achieve using AI, that became a prime candidate for implementing an AI workflow to handle that process, obviously with human in the loop. But if you can get 80% of the results, that's a very good point to actually put an AI into, let's say, documented, structured way to have a repeatable outcome. So that was like about 6 months ago, we went like, oh, well, this is great. Let's do this and let's start doing websites. Let's start doing more social. Let's start putting in processes in places that actually replace estimation, or not necessarily replace, but augment the estimation, the strategizing process, the research. So that's why we kind of made the shift to be AI first across the board, wherever it's possible.
Absolutely. I mean, you have transformed your agency to be first digital agency, right? So for leaders listening to our podcast today who want to build an AI enabled agency culture, what is your step one, playbook for turning enthusiasm into execution?
I think that like a one-step process is to find a simple use case, meaning if you think about your day or your employees' day and typically what they do, you can actually write it down on a timeline hour by hour in terms of their tasks and try to identify the elements that could easily be augmented with AI, note-taking, estimation, for example, or research into what the client does in preparation for a call, and just try to find like one simple step solution to put that task into a workflow. And what I mean by workflow is either a documented set of prompts that you run in ChatGPT, which that is the simplest thing that you can do, or in other large language model, depending on your preference, or actually put it on a platform like make.com, N8N, or Lindy, for example, and get the agent in a multiple step to carry out part of that task or the entirety of that task for you. And then looking at the inputs, obviously you need to spend a little bit of time thinking about what prompt are you going to use to achieve a certain outcome, which is super important because taking generic prompts from the internet or the prompt databases doesn't always work, and it will produce an outcome that somebody else engineered. And with that, for businesses, I think it's super important to get that first element done internally, as in find and identify AI champions within the business. They will stick out. These are essentially people who have an interest and, let's say, enthusiasm for AI projects. They would very likely be talking about AI all day long, like myself. Mm-hmm. So you can quite easily find them. And if you task these people with automating even if it's the smallest part of your process, you'll see the potential. Because if you can implement a small pilot within the business that actually achieves an outcome every time, or at least 80% of the time, that's a very good way to start. Within that same process, what you need to make sure is that you document and measure everything. Any prompts that come into that workflow, any use case that you define, and the KPIs that you set for it, you just need to write it down in order and monitor the outcomes in order to present the findings to the powers that be, so to the leadership, and going like, we've started doing this. It used to take X, now it takes Y. Why not try this with something else? And that's how you get investment and buy-in. And with all the lovely leaderships and CEOs saying that they're going to be investing in AI in the 2026, that's how you approach it. So yeah, that's it. Sorry, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. And talking about AI generated websites, George, what are, the biggest, I would say, missed steps, you're seeing right now, and how do you correct them?
In terms of generating websites, right now, what we see is the capabilities of large language models are increasing. Specifically, Anthropic is doing some wonders in terms of generating sites and creating codes and actually writing functionality within different platforms. The biggest issues that we are currently having are around governance and guardrails, as in AI is great at finding solutions. Let's say that, as I mentioned, about 80% of the time, we usually get it into a workable shape. But in that process, unless you put the right parameters in place to prevent certain things from happening, you're risking, let's say, a bloated code, some leftover files where it does the testing. So there's various bits and pieces that a normal non-technical users wouldn't necessarily notice. I think it's about experimentation and actually checking what the AI does beneath the hood and trying to circumvent certain outcomes that are, let's say, the side effects of working with AI. So that's the biggest problem. The secondary biggest issue that we currently find with AI is the handling large inputs correctly and validating that. So, for example, if you think about a large landing page and how much, let's say, HTML and or whatever code is involved in that single piece of content, AI can sometimes struggle with changing even a single word within that particular piece of content and putting it back intact with that particular change. We found ways around that, but that's one of the major issues, that handling large context in one go, even with simple edits, might be a bit problematic, but there's way around that. And like I said, it's all about experimentation and trying to not giving up on the first. So loads of people actually form their opinion about AI capabilities from 5 minutes of research. They try something, it doesn't work, they give up. We spend a lot of time not giving up, and I think it's the persistence and just continuity with the capabilities, which, as I mentioned, are constantly rising, that makes the whole journey worth it. Because right now that's my main goal in life right now, is to help as many people transition from non-AI to AI world as quickly as possible. Because I have this, by being so deeply involved in those processes and the outcomes and how great it can work, I'm seriously concerned about what's going to happen to AI. Is not going to take your jobs, which is a current cliche, but people using AI will. So yeah, that's that.
And then you have spoken about agentic workflows, right? So what technical stack underpins that concept at your agency, and how do you how does it change the overall efficiency of deliverables?
So right now we're using an amalgamation of quite a few tools. Well, one thing that I say to everyone who's willing to listen is, don't get used to tools all that much. As in, right now there's like 50,000 different AI-based tools. There's even websites that are made to catalog and rate them in some way, shape, or form. Check out Futurepedia, or there's an AI for that, for example. But to answer your question, primarily,
your favorite? Sorry to intervene. Which one is your favorite, your go-to AI tool?
A go-to AI tool is ChatGPT and Claude Code. That's like the two basic things that I do, and an amalgamation of these things to achieve majority of the outcomes.
Okay.
But when talking about workflows, which are essentially, let's say, a structured way of talking to these large language models, we use platforms like Make.com, N8N, as well as Lindy. Those are the top tools that we kind of consider the first easiest point of entry, minus maybe the N8N because it's slightly more technical, as well as like if you got a WordPress website, there's a brilliant plugin called WordPress AI Workflows or something along these lines. I actually met the founder, really great guy, and the plugin is superb. So you could use that as well if you don't want to get too tied into a separate platform, and you can kind of work with that to create an outcome of some sort. But in the end, what we found in line with don't get used to tools too much, it actually makes sense to use AI to implement AI. So what I mean by that is we're actually right now capable of writing a workflow in a given programming language. That could be PHP or .NET, and getting AI to actually create these connectors to OpenAI, to Anthropic, to Gemini, and create code for us that runs the workflow in the same way as make.com or N8N would. So we can natively put that workflow inside Drupal, inside WordPress, inside Magento, for example, to achieve the same outcome as you would with a third-party website. It's really a great starter to create minimal viable concepts or prove to your leadership that AI really works, because you've got a builder, you can do drag and drop, you've got ready-made integrations with various, thousands of different platforms from Gmail, Google Ads and Facebook. So you can build really cool stuff using make.com, for example, or Lindy. But eventually, it actually makes sense to bring them and integrate them deeply using AI into platforms of your choice. So if your client is running on WordPress, it makes sense to keep that workflow in WordPress, because they can, trigger it straight from there, or run it based on the events that are happening within your client's stack. So for example, if they publish something, you can run a workflow to validate the published piece, whether it's in line with their own guidelines, and just give them some sort of feedback.
Absolutely. And talk about your idea about vibe coding, as a way to translate brand personality into machine logic.
So what I've learned about that term, that it can be a little bit controversial. As in, for those who don't know, it's basically using AI to code or create something, a piece of functionality, a landing page, or whatever you need, using strictly AI to achieve an outcome with developer oversight. But what I found is that it's actually frowned upon in some circles, as in, as I mentioned, certain amount of users just created this concept in their head that vibe coding is bad because it created these side effects, as I call them. So we're trying to coin slightly different terms like AI-augmented or AI-assisted coding, which means it's an educated user using AI to achieve a certain outcome. So you got a developer, an engineer that knows the language, actually monitors what the AI is doing, and not just, I think that the correct term is one-shotting the solution, seeing that it works and leaving it there without looking like what can happen with this, what's actually been written, how it works, and understanding that. So vibe coding in practice is, really great as a starting point, but we're trying to use that in a different way and kind of move towards AI augmented coding or AI optimized coding, however you want to call it. I've actually spoken to business owners and heavy techie people, as in developers, and they seem to think that that is a bad thing, in a sense of, if they got a client vibe coding a solution and passing it on to them, they seem to think that it's creating more problems than solutions in that sense. But we've been successfully using AI augmented development for the last, I would say, 6 to 8 months. The gains are clearly there. We've actually, I've personally spoken to a lot of business owners and tech leaders, and they can see signs of developers using AI to create things within their organizations. But what I'm currently, and it's across the board, no one's actually passing the time saving that's achieved with the use of AI tools to build something back to the clients or even to their agency owners, because I've been speaking a lot to a lot of agency owners, and they say, yes, we can see developers using AI because of the easy telltale signs, which you can alleviate in some way, shape, or form. But the sprint times have not decreased. Hence, we're not passing because there's nothing to pass on. But I think eventually there will be, and we're being quite honest and upfront about it. It's like, if the client agrees to, let's say, an AI augmented delivery of the project, there's at least 20 to 25% savings on average. In peak, we've seen projects delivered 3 to 5 times. But we're trying to mitigate the risks on our side as well, because sometimes certain things are not possible to be achieved with AI. And that's why we're out of the box, we reckon is 20 to 25% efficiency. And if the client is aware of the risks that AI brings, obviously our mitigation strategies, that's what we're currently offering as a track within the agency.
Perfect. And looking ahead at 2026 now, George, we're in November now. What core competency do you feel will define the next generation of AI-driven marketers now?
Well, actually, awareness of AI competencies is the core thing you should be looking for. So your knowledge about what's possible with AI and your understanding of the world of AI, of prompting, of all the platforms and various AI tools that are out there, I think that's the biggest differentiator. Because after speaking to about like 100 marketeers and all this lovely research from people like McKinsey, 78% of businesses claim to be using AI, and only 1% actually achieve repeatable outcomes. 95% of AI pilots fail. That's another stat that's going around the internet. What I've learned is that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It's true for that company. It's true on averages if you look at it. But the 1% that actually put AI into play and done their research, done a very unique approach, as in didn't use off-the-shelf prompts and actually put some thought into it, fed some data into it, used retrieval augmented generation, for example, so data-based prompting, and just spend a little bit of time and interest and actually kept up with the latest development, not only looking at the cool ads that, Nano Banana generates. That's the key differentiator. So awareness of AI competencies of AI is a competence in itself, meaning you know what it can do, where the limits are, and how to implement that process in a repeatable way within the business. Obviously, prompt engineering to some degree is a good thing to start. You can spend about an hour learning about it, and it's going to change in the sense that AI is getting more clever about prompting itself, and it can suggest prompts now. But having gone through even an hour worth of training about prompt engineering sets you apart in general from the rest. It's just about human creativity with a layer of LLM that gives you scale. So human in the loop is a super important element of this whole AI game in 2026. It's not that we're going to be replaced, cannot necessarily initiate itself. There needs to be a human that needs to direct it, or at least create a system that has the initial direction in order to initiate something to come out of AI. And I think the best marketeers will be the brand storytellers who will be AI curators, as in the inputs really matter. So whatever you're trying to achieve, you just need to find your own voice that AI can understand, back it up with data. And then after AI is done with whatever you're trying to achieve, just do a heavy review of the outputs. And that's right now in simplicity, the easiest, biggest differentiator is just knowing what it can do, how to speak to it, what the possible outcomes are, versus reviewing what it creates and aligning it better with your business.
Lovely. Great, George. This has been a wonderful, insightful session today with you. But before we let you go, I would like to play a quick rapid fire. I hope you're game for it.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Your last Google search.
For my last Google search, Jesus Christ, I don't use Google search all that much, as you can imagine. So I can give you
Let's say last search on GPT.
Last search on GPT, podcast backdrop prompt.
Good one. All right. What did you do with your first paycheck, George? First paycheck of your life?
I believe that was something very naughty, like going out and getting drunk would be. That's what happened. I think I started work fairly early at about 18. And yeah, that was the only thing on my mind was getting out with my friends, going out with my friends. And right now, slightly different priorities. 3 kids, wife, cat. It's a different world.
I can imagine. All right. So the next one, where do we find you on Friday evenings after office or after work?
I usually spend my Friday evenings driving my daughter to football practice, which is very glamorous, but that's the way the schedule currently works. We basically cut down on alcohol quite a bit. My wife doesn't drink at all. I very rarely drinks. So it's not that I'm going out. And while I'm driving to get my daughter in and out of football, I'm listening to various books and stuff like that. So it's quite boring.
Okay. Your celebrity crush?
Well, my majority, that would be, haven't quite remember her name, but I can tell you what she was in. Oh, Emily Blunt. That's it. There we go.
Okay. Will not grill you any further, George. You have been a sport. Thank you so much for taking out time to do this with us. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's super. Like I said, my goal is to connect with as many people as I possibly can and just educate around what's possible with AI right now, because it's been eye-opening for us as a business, and every single thing that we touch with AI is just turning pure gold. Obviously some failures allowed, but if you do it sensibly, it's really scary not to, if it makes sense.
Yeah. Perfect, George. Thank you so much once again. Yeah. Cheers.
Thanks, man. Have a good day.